Okay, so thank you everyone for coming to our presentation today. My name is Barb DuTot and Crystal Dawn Morris, and the name of our presentation name is Bioregional Herbalism, Best Practices for Wildcrafting, Reconciliation, or Appropriation. Inger could not fit everything into the title, so basically we're going to be addressing some of the ethics around wildcrafting today. So Crystal is going to start with a traditional acknowledgement.
So as Barb said, my English name is Crystal Morris. First of all, I want to take the time to welcome each and every one of you to the Splatsheen community. As a part of the work that I do, it's important that we recognize people and welcome them into our home, our community, our environment. So welcome to Splatsheen. My Splatsheen name is Malishtia. Splatsheen to Shuswap. I come from two very rich communities. Speachia from Vancouver Island, Sartlip of the West Saanich Nation. So that becomes really key as I move along in my presentation. So just wanted to ground myself. It's been kind of one of those crazy Saturday mornings where you have kids and everything's going everywhere. I just learned recently that my grandmother, Esther Tom, cured my father of TB. So my father attended residential school on Vancouver Island when he was young, and then he also attended day school, but he also attended what they called the Nanaimo Indian Hospital. So he contracted somewhere in his young life TB, and he made me promise not to read his TB story. I actually 2 or 3 months ago read his TB story and started crying because I wondered why I wanted to study medicine. Why do I want to be a traditional medicine person? I learned then that my grandmother, Esther Tom from Duncan, cured my father of TB. So it's in our blood. It's in us to know what we know. I want to show you a little film that my daughter and I, with Wapakoni, put together. It's about 3 minutes long. So this process is going to extract the medicine from the Devil's Club. So go ahead, give it a shake. You can sing to it if you want. Helps that medicine come out. Okay, can I have a look? There we go. So this will be ready in 30 days. Okay, Victoria, we're going to start with our medicine that we made. Thank you so much for your help. 1/2 teaspoon Let's mix some Indian hellebore. This is the strongest medicine we have. Let me help you. That's precious stuff. Too much. Right there. Okay, you know what to do. You've just made all pain arthritis lotion. I'm now going to hand this over to you, and this is your responsibility to carry on this medicine for the next generations. So that was appropriately titled Sharing Malama. Malama in our language is traditional, it's medicines. So why we put that together is to tie the generation back to what we lost. We are in the midst of reconciliation, a big word for reconciliation. And there are some days where we try and understand what reconciliation is. And a part of that reconciliation is us reconciling with the land, learning our medicines. So I connected to my grandmother on my father's side, but I'm also teaching my daughter, which I think she's out here. She was supposed to be in here. But as well, connecting us to my mother's side. That was my mother in that short film. And reconciliation is the restoration of friendly relations, including relationship to Mother Earth and with oneself. And appropriation is the action of taking something for one's own use, typically without an owner's permission. So we all know what's happening in the north, right? So here in the midst of reconciliation, something is going on, and what we're trying to do is reconnect with the land. We're trying to pass it on to our next generation. Every community had a medicine person. I can tell you this community has 3 or 4. And some of them are just learning. So I'm taking them by the hand and reconciling with families that may have been at odds. We don't all get along in our community, and sometimes we just need to reconcile with our own community and our own families as well. So I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. I'm going to go a little bit more into detail here because, so I don't know if you all knew what Lieutenant Governor Janet Austin did. She actually learned the Senchothan language so that she could do in an effort to recite a territorial acknowledgement. So as a part of the reconciliation that she was doing, but in the process she discovered it's a little bit more than reconciliation because our First Nations languages tie us to our lands. So the reconciliation piece for her was discovering, I'm doing reconciliation and I didn't even know it. So the second piece of that is where she wanted to determine she was not doing appropriation. So she actually went to an elder and she asked them, is this something that would be viewed positively? Might someone think this is cultural appropriation? She was wondering. So she reached out to the elder and a friend, an associate professor at UVic, to get her blessing. And the elders supported the plan, but made clear they had to do more than learn how to make a territorial acknowledgement. What I heard was that the people were making acknowledgement, but it just became a pattern. It didn't have a sense that acknowledged the land, and our languages are of the land. So it's not appropriation. She's not taking away. She's honoring the language and the land. And that's what we do in traditional medicines, is we honor the land. We honor and we give back to. So and that's why I wanted to show it in our teachings and what I've been taught is to give back to the land, whether it's in a prayer or if I'm taking something from the land, to assess it, to make sure there is enough that's going to replenish the land, and then to do an offering either of a prayer. My friend is sitting here, I work closely with her dad on the trees, and he said he offers up a prayer. I offer up different medicines because the trees, even the trees that built this fine structure we're sitting in, have given up their lives for us to use. So that's where I come from with the honoring and the respect. And I wanted to tie in the appropriation and reconciliation on a larger scope, because I think it's important that as neighbors to each other here in Splatcheen, Enderby, Kingfisher, Ashton Creek, we start talking about the name places, that we begin to have create these safe spaces to have these hard conversations and know that we're here to work together and that we're here to support each other. Our traditional stories and language tie us to our land. Coyote, I have a coyote medicine book, and in the book, Coyote was taught a lesson about not going to steal other people's medicines and their teachings. And if he were to borrow it, he would ask respectfully. So in the end, it was a teaching for Coyote to know that yes, you can use those medicines, you can borrow them, but do it respectfully. Don't just run over and take Barb's medicine and take it on as your own. So that's a bit about the asking and the requesting and those types of things. And again, just to reiterate, this all begins with a discussion about respect. What is respect? What you might respect, your view of respect might be different than my review or my point of view about respect. So if I am here to share with you the medicines, how will you respect it if after I have shared it with you? Not medicines in general, the end product, but out on the land, the territory, the bigger pictures, the trees, the plants, the flowers, all that grows in this wonderful territory. And I can tell you, I've been to the 7 nations of the interior, and this by far is the richest, in my point of view, yeah, maybe I'm biased, but the richest territory that I have been to in the 7 nations of the interior. So one of our medicines is the chokecherry. That which it looks like, in our view, is what it will cure. Achoo! Little droplets. Achoo! What comes out? Picture of a chokecherry. So chokecherries, turned into a tincture, into teas, prevents cough. I can tell you that in the people that I have cured from I don't know, how many people have had a chronic cough this year, this winter? I have probably treated at least 20 people, and this is one of the medicines, harvesting. But also over-harvesting is what I wanted to touch on, because when we look at the chokecherry trees here, what have they been attacked by? Moths, codling moths. They've gotten sicker and sicker every year. So a piece of it, could it be giving back to and honoring it, honoring the trees and the plants, because they're giving, if you choose to eat this and make jams, or if you choose to eat this and make wines, or choose to make medicines with the chokecherry, or to make teas, are we giving enough back to? How do we give back? How do people know what to give back? And this is where I'm going to hand it over to that we can have, we can have that discussion in the end. Where do we begin to start to work together and work to protect our medicines? Because it is important. This is a very important medicine in our territory, and I see it being attacked. Oregon grape is another one I saw attacked this year. So I can tell you, as a person who consistently goes out on the land, I'm seeing some plants come back that aren't so healthy, or I'm having to go higher to look for it, or I'm having to go into a territory that I used to go into to gather, and we have clear cutting happening. So, and it just breaks my heart, because I know rattlesnake plantain isn't I can't gather in that one, that one territory here. So I really appreciate the time. And we'll have a question period at the end, and open discussion, but thank you.
Thanks, Crystal. Cookstown. Beautiful film. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, thank you so much, Crystal. And I'm also going to start and share with you my story of how I started walking on the plant path. So my connection to plants started at a very, very young age, growing up in Cape Breton Island. And I was allowed to roam the forest close to our rural Cape Breton home when I was 4 years old. And so I did ask my mother about this, because I thought, wow, that's really like a young age to just let your children go out and play. And I did. And I wandered the forest, and it was in that beautiful conifer forest that I would hear the wind going through the trees, and I would hear, to me that was a language. That was a language, and there was something really, really beautiful in that language. And I could sort of understand it, but I didn't quite get it. And that just led me down this path to really learn that language, the language of the landscape. And so whenever we moved from Cape Breton Island to Ontario to British Columbia, we lived in the suburbs. We would move into the suburbs. And I was the one in my family who would go out and find the wild spot. And I would hang out there for the day. And that's basically how I grew up. I moved here over 40 years ago. When I first moved here, I lived in a little cabin out at Kingfisher by a creek, just the creek for running water. I lived there with my dog and my horse and my goat. And there was no internet, there was no television, and every day I would put a couple of books. This was one of my first books that I bought at a secondhand store for 50 cents in a pack, and off I would go into the forest with my dog and my horse and my goat. And my backpack of books just became heavier and heavier and heavier. So my teachers, I wasn't as, I didn't have that connection to my ancestors that Crystal has, but my teachers have been the plants. And when you're out learning about plants, find a good teacher, but the plants are going to be your greatest teachers. So I feel really, really honored and privileged that I had that experience. And so what started as a young girl, I just continue on to this day. And there's a never-ending process of learning. So that's a little bit about my story. And when I was in my little cabin, I was learning about plants. I worked with 2 plants exclusively, and they were my mentors. Those 2 plants were my mentors, wild ginger and balm of Gilead or cottonwood. And so I learned those plants intimately and all of the medicine gifts that they had to share with me. And I'm not just talking about things that you ingest, okay, if people can quite understand that. So if we think about medicine, it's more than just what we ingest. It's about the whole totality of the experience. So just getting back to my story. So I met a man. I fell in love. And we had a child. The love affair with my husband did did not last, but the love affair with my plants has long endured. So I started teaching classes because I felt like I wanted to share what I had learned, and I didn't say, I'm going to start a business teaching people about plants and the beauty of the land here. I started teaching because I felt like my soul would shrivel up and die if I didn't start teaching. So a way to start a business, right? No business plan. It was just, I had to start sharing what I knew. And so to honor that commitment, I made an oath to be in service to the earth. So that is how I got here. And so for me, wildcrafting is not just about going in and harvesting plants. It's like I said, it's the totality of the experience. So if you have spent 3 hours harvesting dandelion flowers, because to make this beautiful dandelion flower syrup, you have to pick the petals away from the dandelion flower head. You don't just pick the flowers themselves. You pick petals. You pick those petals off, and it takes a long time. And so sitting in a beautiful field of golden dandelion flowers, the sun warm on your back, the bees buzzing, okay, it becomes a meditation. And you take that precious gift, medicine gift from the dandelion flower, you make it into something beautifully and exquisite. So in February, when it's -15 and it's snowing and blowing, you take a bottle of your dandelion flower syrup and open it, and you are immediately transported back to that beautiful May day when the bees are buzzing and the dandelions are golden yellow and there's a blue sky and the sun is warm on your back. That is the totality of the experience. That is the medicine. So when I read posts now on Facebook like, well, dandelion is great because it kills cancer, or elder is really good for killing viruses. Well, it's more than just that. And then when you share this with someone, the person you share your medicines with also receives the totality of that experience, okay? And this is something you will never ever get in a commercially prepared product. So that is the beauty of wild gathering or wild crafting. Like Crystal said, it's that intimate connection you make with your land, with the plants. They become your friends and your neighbors. You go with not as a settler, you know, we really, I think, need to reconcile. We like to take, right? You go in with a mindset of receiving a medicine gift from the plant, all sorts of gifts, like Crystal said. And then, if you are in this gifting relationship, you receive a gift. What is the next step? What is the next? Giving back. Giving back is really, really, really the key. This is the reciprocity involved. So how do we give back? What are some of the ways we could give back? Okay.
Only take a small portion of anything.
Okay, only take what you need, or not take. See, this is the language that we need to, you know, do away with. Don't take, receive, okay? And this is something that I am working on to myself. I'm trying to eliminate that word take, okay, receive.
I harvest balsam, and I always make sure that I leave buffer.
Yeah. Yes. So one of the things you can do is to help the stand regenerate, right? So you can save seeds, right? You can harvest seeds. You do stand tending, okay? Not with the idea to control, but to give back. If you're digging up roots, you can replant them, okay? And like Krista was saying, now, to go out and harvest, we're just seeing like the decimation of some of these natural areas. And so it's getting to be a big concern. So where was I going with this? Oh yeah, and so giving back. There's so many different ways. So saving seeds, letting your own land, your own yard, rewild it. Just let the plants come in. And I have had so many plants come into my yard. I think, oh, I would just love to have some beautiful rose hips. And one day I woke up, boom, there was a beautiful rose hip. I'm not kidding. It took a while. It just didn't go boom. But anyway, now I have like the best rose hips anywhere. They're about this big, and I have the best rose hips on my land. I stopped mowing, most of my property. It's rewilded itself. So that's one thing we can do. You can volunteer with the Native Plant Society. You can volunteer with a conservation or stewardship organization. You can really take some time to stop and learn about the land from which you are receiving the medicine gifts. So when I started learning about plants, I didn't go in thinking, oh, I'm looking for medicine. I just let that medicine come to me by being present and by being still, by just listening, okay, and spending long hours in the forest. And so just to go out, if you're just new to wildcrafting, if you've started wild gathering, take some time and slow down. Go out, if it's in your backyard, if it's in the forest, watch and listen. What other things are happening there? What other insects and animals and birds are also receiving those medicine gifts? So ecosystem, the word ecosystem, there's a Greek word for ecosystem called oikos, and it means home or household. So whenever you are going into an ecosystem, you're going into someone's home. And like Crystal said, we go in and we go with respect. Similarly, you would not want someone to go into your house, right, and just, barge in. It's the same thing with going into any ecosystem, whether it's the ecosystem in your backyard, okay, or a wild natural ecosystem. And then when you do that and you take some time, you feel that deep connection. And then when you start to do some harvesting and making some of your own medicines, that is hugely empowering to be able to treat yourself, like Crystal, anything from a serious condition, TB, to cuts and scrapes. That is hugely empowering, okay? And I feel that we all should take more responsibility for our own health, okay? And our own health is so inextricably tied to the health of the earth and our ecosystems. And also wild gathering, when done ethically, when done properly, offers a sustainable model of medicine. You're making your own medicines. Even the natural health industry, it's a toxic industry. Medicines come in plastic and pills and plastic pills, okay? And it's really about, commercialization. So wild gathering can offer a really sustainable, gentle, but extremely powerful and extremely effective. I'm not going to say alternative because it's a traditional model, okay, of healthcare. And Crystal also spoke about connecting back to her family, to her ancestors. Well, anyone, okay, this is the connection. Wildcrafting connects us to our own ancestral people, no matter where you are from, okay? We all have somewhere our great-grandmother or great-grandfather, whether it was from Scotland or England or Germany, who has been wild gathering and using medicines to treat their family in their community. And also, I think it's also really important when we're out in the wild gathering, especially in the forest, to learn about the ecosystems, but also to learn about the First Nations people in your community. And I've been really fortunate because my work, I worked as a career counselor, and it brought me in contact with a lot of people from the Splatching community. So I have that connection there already. But I think it's also really important to, especially right now, to make the connection with your local First Nations community. Show up at events. Just show up at events that are open to the community. Okay? Talk to people. If you have made some beautiful medicine, take that to the community and share it with some of the elders. So we start to have to, create that partnership. And that's the other beautiful thing about wild gathering and making your own medicine. We do, make these connections and these partnerships. There's something else I wanted to say. Oh yeah, and so I'm really, I stopped teaching for 2 or 3 years because I had to reconcile with myself, as a settler, teaching plant medicine to other settlers within, the Splatching community. And so that's been a process for me, and I'm getting to this place now where I can feel comfortable and good about doing that. I do not teach about traditional Shuswap medicine, okay? I mostly teach about weeds. And so as settlers, I'm going to encourage you here to learn about the weeds in your backyard, in that vacant lot beside your house, because those are the medicines that our European ancestors brought with them, okay? So start with the weeds. They're wonderful. They're both food and medicine. And I could just be going blah, blah, blah up here all day, but I'm going to stop because it's probably
12:02.
I don't know, 12:02. Do you want to do some Q&A?
Sure.
Okay, Q&A. Q&A. Who here is actually out wild gathering right now, making medicines? Okay, who aspires to make some medicine? All right, okay. So one of the things that, so I'm going to suggest, you get some, after you've spent some time just being, whether on the land, whether it's in your own backyard, the riparian area, get some books, okay? Get some good books. Plants of Southern Interior, British Columbia is a good place to start. Trees, Shrubs, and Flowers is also a really good place to start too. So start learning the common names as well as the botanical names, okay? So you need a couple of books, and I didn't bring it. Get a loupe, get a hand lens, okay? And then you can really see the detail in plants up close and personal. And that, that in itself is just, you could while away. Pardon me? It makes a huge difference, but you also get, it's like you will never look at plants the same way again, never ever.
That Plants of the Southern Interior, somebody had donated one to the library, so the Entry Library Friends just donated it to the solid auction upstairs.
Oh, okay, awesome.
It'll be available here today.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
nice.
so what's happening
Those are nice
right
books.
now in the botanical world is the system whereby people classified plants was based on patterns and down to reproductive organs in plants. Now it's on DNA analysis, so it's really, really hard to keep up with nomenclature. But when you're first going out, you don't really need to worry about that too much, but just really familiarize yourself with what's growing in your area and what else is living there as well. Remember, oikos, a household, a home. So get some books and then just start with 1 or 2 plants at a time and learn those plants inside and out. Spend time with them, breathe with them, just be with them. It's much better, and you're going to get a lot more out of your practice if you learn a few plants really, really well than a whole bunch of plants just kind of sort of, right?
Question for your ginger, the wild ginger, you use it as like ginger. What else do you use it?
I go out into the forest and I go by the creek where the wild ginger is, and first of all, I just appreciate the beauty and the flowers. I'll take do a little scratch and sniff. Okay, so that's the first part of the medicine that I receive from ginger, and then I will harvest the root very, very carefully. Okay, because it's a clonal colony, and you have to be. That's the second part. You need to know, different plants need different harvesting practices. So wild plants like wild ginger, okay, that are under threat because of habitat destruction. I don't really teach very often about wild ginger in my classes, okay. So how I harvest it very respectfully, and I have worked with wild ginger for the worst colds and flus that just nothing will get rid of. When my son was really little, that's what he would drink, wild ginger tea. And there would be times where I'd be out in the snow, like looking for the wild ginger tea, right? And that would clear anything up. So yeah.
So I use wild ginger for the stomach and stomach issues, where somebody has come to me that's blocked or like throwing up.
Yes.
Little children, and you see me with a can of ginger ale, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same effect, right? It's going to stop that.
Yeah.
It'll
Although
help settle the stomach.
It does have an emetic action as well. Yeah. So. I would caution against. It's a really, really powerful medicine. I would not recommend pregnant women ingesting wild ginger. You may.
So I draw the medicine out of the plant, which I'm sure you do as well. Yeah. But every practitioner is different, so we're being very respectful towards each other.
And so it's like we both have different relationships, you know, with the plants, and that's what's really, really key, right? We have a different relationship, so my needs, and my relationship will be different than Crystal's. There's probably going to be some common ground there for sure, right? Yeah.
I just wanted to comment that it's really important to learn to recognize the plants at their different stages of growth. In the spring, they look totally different than they do in midsummer and then in fall.
Yes.
And so you're looking at the leaves, you're looking for the flowering, and the seeds or the berries.
Yes.
So it's really getting to know the plant throughout the whole year. And in the winter, they'll be covered with snow.
Yeah.
But then you can see how this is planted.
Yes, thank you so much. Yeah, that's I was so much to say and we forget, right? And there's a little time. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. Yeah, to be out on the land all the time, not just a harvesting season, right? And that's another way of being respectful, right? Yeah.
So that's how I'm taught as well. I failed to mention my mentor is Dr. Jamie Paul, who's a naturopathic physician. And becoming a naturopathic physician so late in life, she realized she did that because she learned traditional medicines her whole life, but wanted the validation behind her, so she became a naturopathic physician. So now she's 83 years old, wanting to pass on this world of medicine that she's built in terms of a shop and helping people. So she's taught us, so this time of year I'm waiting to get out there and to do the bud therapy. So I've done what we call gemotherapy. I've done the life cycle of like showy milkweed and watched it from the spring right till when it goes to sleep in the fall, dug it up so we could look at the roots. So we knew what to look for. Like Barb has said, study what you know and study it, through all the cycles, because that's the best way we're going to learn an environment, which is what I have done up here at Hidden Lake, gone back every couple of days this past year to know what's growing there, because what's here today is not what's going to be there tomorrow or the day after or a week later. The landscape changes so much in a short period of time.
And that's kind of what I call that, the language of, learning the language of your landscape. That's what I call that too. Yeah.
5 minutes.
So I have a question for Crystal. And so Crystal, we talked a bit about, you know, our reconciling. So what I really would like to hear from you, so as a white settler out gathering plants, like, what's your take on that? Do you see that as an opportunity for reconciliation? Do you see that as...
I see that as an opportunity of exactly what the Lieutenant Governor spoke of. What you want to learn, can we do it more respectfully? Come ask. We'll more than likely open the doors and say, yeah, let's have a session. Let's talk about chokecherry. Let's talk about this. But right back out to how do we begin the safe discussion. This is a safe discussion. I would classify this as a safe discussion because you're all willing participants. Sometimes I walk into an environment where a school has brought me in to speak about medicines and not everybody wants to learn. But it's to create and lay a foundation of how do we create this. I believe the library is doing a really good job at creating that safe space.
Yeah.
It's those continued partnerships. It's the partnerships with the galleries now that are opening up those discussions around, they just hosted last June a seat around the kitchen table, which was traditional medicines in the Salmon Arm area, and they had a whole month of live presentations.
Oh, that's
Yes.
right. Yeah, yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
things like that
yeah.
that will open up these discussions and open up sharing our knowledge.
Awesome.
Are you familiar with Terry Willard's book?
Yes.
Yes, I'm okay.
That's one of my favorite because it has the Shuswap teachings of how the plant was used and their names, and it's one of my favorite books.
Yeah, I mean, you can never have too many books,
Yeah.
right? That's like the thing. You get a couple of books, and then you can never have too many field guides or herbals. That's what I think.
Is that called again, the tool for examining the flowers and seeds?
A hand lens.
Handlens.
It's a dollar store.
Handlens.
Yeah.
Like a magnifying glass.
Yeah.
If you get a really good geology loupe, okay, you can get up to 15x, and that's what I would actually recommend. A magnifying glass is fine for starting out, but if you want to see the fine detail in a plant, so you can get, 5, 10, and 15 power. So 10 is really, really good. So I just want to, since we're wrapping up, I would just like to, again, thank you for coming, and thank you so much, Crystal. And I really want to thank the plants. And so when you leave here today and you go outside, stop and take a minute, and connect with your breath, with the plants out there. As you're breathing in, the plants are breathing out. As you're breathing out, the plants are receiving, our medicine gift to them. So we're always in this cycle of reciprocity. When you walk out to your car, take a few minutes and stop and look at the plants. Not to I need to identify this, but just look and appreciate what is there. The greatest medicine gift that you will get from plants is the gift of breath. That is the most powerful medicine gift. So, yeah. And
Can I just add something here? I'd like to address this to everybody, but you mentioned about how you harvest. I'm a Chaga harvester. And in this area, this winter, I have seen people taking the Chaga and ruining the tree and the plant. If you are going out and you're harvesting that, leave at least an inch on the plant or on the birch tree. If you don't, you're going to kill the tree.
Exactly.
You're going to lose your production of
Yeah.
your chocolate. So
Yeah.
that harvesting
Yeah, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
that.
Yeah,
I don't
the
even
vein.
talk about Shaga with people.
The importance of having a discourse, that we're all talking about our harvesting practices, so that we're all aware of how we choose to define what is an ethical harvest,
Yeah.
or the importance of a given harvest, what will do damage and what won't do damage. And here we are in a community situation here. We could actually have an opportunity to be like, oh, I take a third of this, I take 5% of this, I take 50% of that. What and why? And only by saying that to each other are we going to have a concept of when somebody doesn't have right.
I'm going to leave the last word to Crystal.
So, Cook's Jam. Hi, Chika. Thank you for being here.